Hey, I'm Mayor Derek Wood. Welcome to another edition of Elected and Engaged. We are your voice for local leadership. On this podcast, we interview locally elected officials who talk about what it means to be elected and engaged in your community. And we bring you a front row seat into your living room. Today's no different. We have my friend today, Dr. Nancy Young from Tracy, California. She is the first Black woman elected as mayor in Tracy, California, elected in 2020,
Yes.
then re-elected by her people again in 2022.
Yes.
She has been a staunch advocate for civic engagement in her community, for youth empowerment, as well as public service in her community. Her background is in mass communications. She has a master's of business administration, and her theological degree, her doctor degree is in theology. So please welcome to the show today, Dr. Nancy Young. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, I always introduce people, but how is it that you like people to know Dr. Nancy Young? How would you introduce yourself in a crowd?
Let's see here. How would I introduce myself in the crowd? I wear many, many hats. So ministry is actually my background. I do a lot of talking, but ministry is the base of who I am. And so that's hence my doctorate in theology. But I was ministering since I was 11 years old. And so I started preaching when I was 11, and I directed the adult choir, and I started teaching Sunday school. And so mentorship is really the core of who I am, trying to pass on and trying to help build up other people, just to make people better from the inside out, because God can only make the real change. And so everything that I do politically is all based in ministry and helping others, trying to help people cross economic, educational, racial, different kind of boundaries, and just connecting people. I'm that collaborative person.
So what do you think really inspired you to ministry growing up at such a young age? Because a lot of kids out there playing cops and robbers, or they're playing cowboy and Indian, in
hmm
our generation, right? So what do you think inspired you for ministry at such a young age?
My church was in South Central LA, and I had a female pastor. And she was
And
one of the
that was
few.
rare.
Yes, she was
That
like
was
three
rare.
in the entire organization of Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. And it was um it was inspiring to see her just to go forward and not really be concerned about the criticisms or what men thought where they thought she should be. And my mom got into ministry after that. And then just being in church and going to Sunday school and going to service, just listening to the word of God, I was just drawn to it. I just wanted to be better and do better and see how I can help other people achieve that as well. And I didn't feel that it was Kurt telling me being a kid. I still played marbles or jacks or jump rope and hopscotch and all those kind of things. I had a lot of fun, but I did have my own prayer group when I was actually 10. We went house to house, just young people, just praying together, because I didn't want to be the only one to go to heaven. I'm like, if I want all my friends, I want everybody I know to go to heaven. And so that's how I got involved.
Wow, so this sounds like you started organizing,
hmm
getting people engaged at a young, like at a very young age. You
Yes.
were civically in mind, because I see you were very into public service and civic engagement early on. And so, why do you think, besides you wanting all your friends to go to heaven, that really inspired you to really start getting people engaged?
Because I knew that everybody had a voice.
Mm.
And so my motto has always been your voice matters, because it truly does matter. Everybody has ideas, no matter how young they are, no matter how old they are, that we all have something in us that we need to share with others. And so I wanted to always pull that out. And so some of the young people would be so upset, like, oh my God, please, Nancy, don't, not me. I'm like, okay, just read a scripture, do something. And the thing is that all of those young people are very active adults in various areas, because I help them come out of their shells. And so I just love being able to just help and encourage and inspire others to be authentically them.
Wow. So after you graduated from high school, what did you kind of do there? What was
So
your
I went to UC Berkeley. I wanted to be an anchor woman. So that's what I thought I would
mass
do.
communication?
Mass communications. That's why I went into that. So I had been editor of the yearbook. I had, of course, been student body president. I ran track. I was the manager for the gymnastics team. I did the stats for the football team. I like just activities. I was the president of the Black Student Union. I just like being involved. If it was just the educational piece of school, it would have bored me to death. And so I just got through that. But I did all the extra things because it added flavor to life. And so even though I was the first, I think I was the first Black president at my high school. And so
Wow.
in San Fernando. And I was just really, although when I was talking to Barbara Lee, she said she'd think it was another one during the time she was at my same high school. Alex Padilla actually graduated years after me. He's the little brother of my friend who we both co-edited the yearbook. So
Wow. So let's go. So you went to the same high school. See, we ain't gonna glaze over this as Congresswoman
yes,
Barbara Lee, who got her start on the first black woman to run for president, Miss
yes,
Shirley Chisholm.
that's right.
Right? See, we're not just gonna gloss over those two little facts there. So let's talk about this high school, you getting involved. Right? What made you run for student body? Because I think this is important for the young people
Hmm.
watching. Like you didn't just ascend to mayor. You've had a level of engagement from 11 now to high school. What inspired you to run for student body president? Like, what was that?
I was always just interested in being at the table and
Mm.
giving input. When I lived in Compton, it was such a caste system of all blacks, and so I was in the middle. I wasn't the top. The top people were really high yellow. Seriously, it just went in order of your skin,
Mm.
and I was blocked from being able to serve on a council. And so when I moved to San Fernando, I was like the only black kid in my class, and I met another black young lady there who invited me to go to the council at lunchtime. And so when I got there, I had ideas. I raised my hand and they called on me and it's like, you should run for something. I'm like, really? And so, but I hadn't been at the school that long. I got there the end of that eighth grade year. And so they said, well, you can come to the first meeting next year and you run, either do secretary or treasurer. We'll appoint those positions. Like, okay. So I showed up to the meeting. I became the secretary.
In eighth
And
grade.
so this is going into ninth because I was still junior high. So ninth grade, this is the next year, the following year, because I got to eighth grade when it was March of that year. It was the end of the school year, but I got involved then. And so that year, my ninth grade year, the president left the school, and so the advisor contacted me and said, "Okay, well, we're going to have an opening because the vice president is going to go to the presidency. Would you like to be the vice president?" I'm like, "Sure." And so I became the vice president of the ninth grade class. And when I got to high school, there was an advisor there who was over student government. He came to me and he asked me if I would run for president. And so I thought I was too young to run for president of the school. I'm like, the whole school body? And so I ran for vice just to satisfy him because he thought that I could do it. And so I ran for vice president. It was the biggest field, the largest field. Seemed like everybody, all the juniors were running for that position. And I was the only sophomore running for it. But I found out that it wasn't just about money because I had a job at McDonald's
Okay.
and we had like we had our table set up and we can talk to people as they came to us about why they should vote for us. People were giving out balloons, donuts, can't there was I'm like, I'm not spending all my little money on that.
Pencils.
Yeah, I gave a little piece of paper with a little stick pin that said vote for Nancy Lipscomb was my maiden name. And I put a little stick pin, could you wear this please? And so we had a debate and surprisingly, I won. I forgot to vote for myself that day because I was at a meeting at the voting time. And so, but I still won. And so the next year I was unopposed running for student body president.
Wow. So the fact that, it's some great points here because a lot of times people feel like they don't know how to get involved.
Hmm.
You moved from South Central LA, which is LA, up northern.
But I have to be honest, I grew up in Compton. My church is in South Central LA.
Oh, so you grew up in Compton.
Yes.
Wow. So you grew up in an environment in a time where the riots, gangs were very prevalent.
Absolutely. My next door neighbors on both sides of me, sadly, the guys did not live that through to get really become an adult because they were involved in gangs
Were you
and
there
things.
during the Rodney King?
No, no, no. I was an adult.
Okay.
So that was 92. And I remember that when it came with the verdict and everything, because that was Different World's my favorite show of all times. And I graduated with them from college. And wasn't literally with them, but I graduated at the same time. And so when Whitley and Dwayne Wayne got married, I had just got married. So the riots was around that time of their honeymoon. And but I remember all of it very vividly because I go to Los Angeles often because my family is still in Southern California, and so I went down around that time. But it's different from even my mom grew up in Watts, and so she was there for the Watts riots. So I think it's interesting that we all have our own eras and things that we deal with.
Yeah, and so then you went into, and once you became president, did you know about Barbara Lee at the time in that
No,
school?
I didn't get to meet Barbara Lee until, well, I knew about her before, but I didn't get to meet her till about a year or so ago. And so that's when she and I were talking about the leadership there because Alex Padilla, he's the one who told me that his sister was Julie when I was talking to him in DC. I know my advisor, the same one who pushed me to be student body president, he pushed him into leadership as well.
Wow. So how important do you think mentorship or leaders or somebody tapping somebody else is on this leadership journey?
I think it's critical because now, as the age that I am now, I can clearly see leadership and special things in people. And so I didn't realize, right? It seemed like I was targeted. People just start reaching out to me. I mean, these were Caucasian people, and they were looking out for me. Even in Compton, I had a white teacher that really helped me on my educational journey. I had a white counselor in junior high school that really pushed me in my education. And Mr. Cockrell is a white man too, and he pushed me in that, as well as Alex Padilla. And so Barbara Lee was ahead of my time. So I don't know who pushed her back then, but it's people seeing something in others that maybe not necessarily recognize it. When I ran for council the first time, it was a mentor that I had on the council. She was the first black ever on the council. I'm the second black ever. Not just the first black female, I'm the first black mayor for Tracy, and I am the first female mayor elected for the city of Tracy. Two things at the same time. And
Wow.
so, but Evelyn Tolbert, who was my mentor from the Tracy Council, she helped me sign up to run. I didn't know that's what she was doing when she had me sign a paper. And then the next thing I saw in the newspaper, Nancy Young is running for council. I was like, I am? She was like, you're just not going to take that step out. You're ready. And so
So what were you doing before you ran for council?
working, being a mom, being a minister. My husband and I co-pastor a church since 96. And so just really just busy with life. And um, when I've always been busy in the community. So I'm a part of the Kiwanis Club. I had already been president of the Kiwanis Club, the Boys and Girls Club board for 10 years. The Tracy African American Association. Golden Agers Group was a group that I joined when I was 40 because I was coming to help advocate for their issues. And so I always just wanted to highlight voices. It's like you're too afraid to say this. I'll go tell the people that you need help with this. And so that's really how I got involved in just helping echo other people's voices that were too afraid to speak. And so then when I went to the council meetings, I went just to learn. I took a notebook. I didn't go up to the dais. I was there for 4 years in the audience taking notes. And so then
That's
I
good.
ran and then I won.
You know that's a big point because your level of civic engagement was just natural to you. It wasn't forced. It wasn't something you look for, and I think you would be the definition of what civic engagement is. But if you can define it for people who don't understand what it means to be civically engaged, uh, can you give us a definition in plain terms of what civic engagement means?
I think it's just really being involved at a level that's important to you. So whether it's that you're interested in doing something for kids, when I met with the Kiwanis president at the time, he gave me his card and it said, asked me how to be a kid advocate. I'm like, well, I'm always advocating for kids. I had my own mentor program. I mentored a lot of youth for many, many years. And so I'm like, on what level is this? He said, well, I want you to join the Kiwanis Club. The Kiwanis Club? I said, isn't that a club for old white men? And he was an older white man. He started laughing. He said, it used to be. He said, but in the 80s, we started accepting women and people of color. And so I joined that club and he asked me to be their speaker lead, to bring in speakers. I said, I don't know that many people, but surprisingly, once you start meeting people and asking and seeing if they can come share different things for their organization, for their business, is a lot of people out there and it just connects one link after another. And so that's where I got involved. The first thing I got involved with in Tracy, but my mentor, she said, you know what, Nancy? if you ever want to run for something, this is at the beginning, before I even ran, she said, you need to make sure that you're authentic. You're Black, right? She said, so you need to be authentically Black, connected to the Black organization here in our community. So I had to seek that out to become a part of that. So people need to take time to seek out something that is already in play. And if it's not, then you create it.
Mm.
So there's a lot of people that create little organizations and things that's just based on what's important to them. You don't have to even be the president of something. You can just have a seat at the table, to have a voice, to be able to echo whatever your concern or whatever you want to bring people together to do.
So what was it like now that you got elected as a council,
Hmm.
the second ever Black person, let
Yes.
alone female up there? You know, what was the transition, and really what was the campaigning part? Because a lot of people, see you out there knocking on doors, but what did it take for you to get elected?
So, as I said, my theme has always been your voice matters. And so that was really my message out there, is that your voice matters, in that when I ran at the time, because my mentor she had retired. And so 2 years later, it was the all white male council. And so voices of men are not the same as women. And voices of different races are very different as well. Different backgrounds, different things that are important to you, and different people share things with you. And so it was just very different for me. And so I wanted to make sure that just others felt like they had a voice, that they really mattered. And so that's what I did. I talked to different ones about, what's important to you, what do you want to see. And many were surprised that I asked a question. Remember when I went to the airport just to see what was going on there, and what was their deal. And it was like, well, what do you want to say? Because other people who were running were telling them what they needed, and we are going to make sure we do this. And I sat down. I said, I don't really know what you need. I said, you tell me, and I'll see how I can help you. And so that just resonated with people, to be able to be free to share, and not people assume that they know what their needs are. And so just being open like that. I wasn't opposed to anyone. I wasn't saying that I was better than anybody. I just felt that I could provide something better at the table.
So it was seven white men when you
Five.
five white
Hmm.
guys when you ran. What is the demographic makeup of Tracy? Tell people about Tracy. Like if you could describe Tracy outside, also with the demographics, but tell people about Tracy.
So Tracy is about 100,000 people. When I moved there 18 years ago, it was probably close to 70,000. So we're growing, and we're right at the cusp of the entryway into the Central Valley from the Bay Area, which is very diverse. Um, our city was more of a sleepy town kind of place. And so many people live there, but they worked in the Bay Area, other places, and many still do. But my whole thing was to get people involved in the town that they live in while they're there. So it's a bigger town, but with a small town feel. We'll still have parades downtown. I go in the store, it's really hard because I'm always talking to somebody in the store. They want to share something with me, or they just want to say hi. Or, some people have issues and they just want me to know so I can see what I can do to help them. And that's fine. I love being able to be personable like that. And so where people do recognize me, and recognize the fact that I will try to help them the best that I can. And so it's just that type of town that you feel like you can connect with people one on one. But the demographics, as far as I know, are the Black population is between 7 and 8%, and it was that when I got there, and it's grown exponentially just like that. And so the majority is Caucasian. I don't know all the different percentages. I need to look them up, but we have a real mixed community. We have a lot of Hispanics. We have a lot of Indians from India, and we have a number of Asians too, and different levels from Asia. So it's a real mixed community. But the one thing when I moved there, I was all excited that my kids could be around more people that look like them, because coming from Fremont, it was probably a smaller percentage, maybe more like 2 or 3% Black
Wow.
in Fremont. So we got to Tracy. There were more Black kids at the school, but sadly for my kids, they weren't in the honor classes like my kids were. So they still were one of the only Black kids in their classes. But they did play sports, so they
Okay.
did get to have a lot of other friends.
So what made you transition from being on council to you said it's time for me to run for mayor? Like, what was that thing that clicked that said, I need to challenge all challengers?
So for me, we do have term limits. So we have 2 4-year terms that you can serve as a council member. The first time I ran for mayor was when I was halfway through my second term. I would have just waited until the current mayor completely served out his term and just ran at the ending point for me of council. But he was doing some really unscrupulous things and just really had a negative impact with his whole regime and just getting rid of great leaders in our staff. And so I ran against him. And I was like, does people not pay attention to what's going on here? The last straw was when he got rid of when he orchestrated the firing of our police chief. And he was a well loved Hispanic man. And so I was like, that was the last straw. We had got rid of our black city manager, our first black no, second black city manager, and then the assistant city manager. It was just a mess. So I ran that year, but I didn't win. I jumped in the race at the really near the end, and so um, but I stayed on the council, became vice mayor. We called mayor pro tem, and then I went ahead and ran at the end of my year, my 2 years, my last 2 years, and that year, usually when people run for mayor, council can be a lot because you run at large,
Right.
top two people. But the mayor is usually two, maybe three people that run for mayor. And when I ran then, it was five of us. It's
Jeez.
all these guys came out of nowhere. Well, one lady and three men came to run against me. And I can't remember if it was five or six, but it was a big field. I'm just like, really? Y'all wouldn't run against a white guy, but y'all all want to run against me. And so different nationalities.
Wow.
And so, but I overwhelmingly won.
That's
It's
good.
like
Come
nobody
on.
was like right up on me. But yes,
And made history.
yes.
It made history. You said something that I think a lot of people miss out, and one of the reasons why we created this podcast is because when things were going on with that mayor who you had issues with, you're like, don't the people in the community care?
Hmm.
What's your message to the community right there around that feeling about when things is going on in local government, and more importantly, why is local government important?
People need to be abreast of what's going on. And people care on another level, but do you care enough to take action or say something about it? You can write me a little DM, you're doing a great job, or this is wrong, but are you going to come out and say something about it? Are you going to do something about it? That's the thing. Too many people are timid and afraid to say anything. And so that's part of empowering people and helping empower people to know that they can lead. They don't have to have a doctorate degree. Now, for many Black people, it seems like we need to have a lot more education to prove that we can do the job when others can just stroll in from high school and be like, I'm here.
Right, right.
So, but it's important that people are communicating in different ways. Some people are afraid to come and speak in front of a group, but maybe they're connected to another smaller group that can have someone who amplifies that voice. That's why I try to take time and go in the community and pull out different voices and different concerns. But it's important that people care. It's important that people show that they care.
Mm, that's good. You've been city council, mayor pro tem, aka vice mayor, and now mayor. How would you define what a city council person does, and how do you define what a mayor does? So, in your own definition, what are the roles? Because people have their own perceived roles of what it is, but once you held those positions, what would you tell the people your experience, the self-described job description of those roles have been for you?
Well, it's very different I liken it kind of unto being an aunt versus a mom. And so you can be that great aunt. You can pick up your niece and nephew. You can do things with them, play with them, buy them things. But it's not your full responsibility to take care of them. They go home. And so as a council member, I care a lot about my community. And I got out there and I got things on the ballot to raise. We have a measure that I got on there, and we're bringing in over $330 million in 20 years to build amenities for our community. I saw that need. People continue to complain, but nobody was doing anything about it. And so I was like, well, what can we do? And so I did that. But when I became mayor, it's kind of like being a mom where you really truly feel like, wow, a lot of responsibility is on me. People are looking up to me. The things I was dealing with issues this morning with different people in the community, there it's personal to them. People reached out to me as a council member, but as mayor, all of a sudden they think that I can really change the world. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I don't have that much power. But it is, yes, we all have five vote. We all have an equal vote
That's right.
when we're coming up, when we're on that dais, when we're making decisions for our community. So yes, you can throw a monkey wrench in anything just because you have that voice to make that vote. But as mayor, there is such a responsibility that so many people don't realize that represents our entire community. It affects everything that we do. There are boards that I sit on that only mayors can sit on. And so, but some people, sadly, some council members, they don't understand that. They're not there. So they don't, that if people really grasp how much responsibility is on the mayor and the influences that the mayor can make on the difference for our entire community, they wouldn't try to have term limits. They would not limit it to 2 years, especially not two terms for 2 years, to realize all the things that can be done. And so I feel bad for our community because it's a lot going to be lost when I leave. It was a lot lost when the first mayor that I served with, when he left, because he had been there for years before the term limits began. But others, others who've done nothing, and they feel like that others who look up to them look at nothingness being the mark, and so it doesn't mean anything. But as a mayor, there's a grave responsibility to help bring and inspire businesses to come to our city. It's more than just smiling and showing up at a ribbon cutting. There's the behind the scenes work, the conversations that happen to get them to come to your city, the boards that I sit on to make sure that we're getting funding here, the relationships that I've built as mayor, even at the federal level, at the state level, just a phone call to bring in millions of dollars. People don't realize that. They're like, oh, we got that money, but without relationship, do you think we have that? Oh, no.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to be able to cross barriers, cross boundaries to be able to communicate. And so it's, it's a very different level.
Yeah, a level of education.
Yes.
What can the community to do to really help more people understand the value of local government, right? Because I think I know in my area it's only the state government and the federal government that gets all the spotlight. The majority of the lion's share media attention, right? Both in newspapers and on national
Yes.
news and local news. So what can we do to continue to shine the spotlight in on the power of local government?
Local government is where everything happens. It makes the decisions for you. My husband get all caught up with the federal stuff. Do you believe? I'm like, I got a lot of stuff going on right here. I mean, that's what I need to focus on right here, because right here is going to matter where you pay your daily taxes. Right here matters for our businesses right now that are going through a huge tax hike that we're trying to wrestle with. These business taxes that our city is putting on. Are there's these mandates that come down from the state? So people mad at us. Why are you raising our garbage rates? Well, we have to pass it on to you. We can't pay for your utilities. We can't pay for your water. And our systems are aging. You get mad because PG&E pipes exploded and they're being irresponsible because they weren't maintaining that. But we need to maintain our pipes before something happens here. Then you be mad at us for not being, responsible. Why didn't you tell us? But then when we tell you, then you have a fit. Oh my God, I'm gonna go broke because you raised my water $3 a month. Really? So it's a whole different level that people need to understand, that when you get up in the morning and you turn on your water, as long as you paid your bill, turn on your light, you want all that to work, right? So you have to understand that public works is important, just to me as important as the firefighters are, the police department. You want your home to be safe, right? So, but you want your youth to be safe. You don't want your youth to be afraid that the cops are here just to protect somebody else, but you want them to protect you too. You want them to serve you too. So it's on these personal levels that we make the decisions whether this store can be built there, whether we zone this area to be able to bring more housing, whether we have a brand new school that just opened this past Friday. Is is a school in your neighborhood that your kids can walk to, or do you have to be driven? across town to go to a school. It's all these local decisions that people need to understand that makes the huge difference. Yes, you have higher level stuff that comes from the US government, but then it goes to the state, then it comes to the county, and it comes to our cities. And so we're the ones that's doing all this every day. But as a kid, I have to say that I didn't really realize that structure either.
Yeah.
I didn't know who my mayors were. Well, Bradley, okay. Bradley was LA for like almost all my life, of course, all my adolescence life. And so people knew who he was, but still what he did, I didn't realize that we had a separate mayor really in Compton. So it's it's interesting though because I've met some people now. Even just last week, I was speaking at an event, and a lady came up to me and she said, "My daughter is at UC Berkeley. She just graduated, but she did a report on you." I met a gentleman. He brought his 6-year-old daughter who at Montessori school. She had written a report about me, and she started interviewing me. She said, "Is it true that you wrote 7 books? Is it true?" She just started asking me different things. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, how sweet!" So I've met different ones who they know who the mayor is now
Yeah.
because I'm out there and they see, and it's fascinating. I'm like the biggest hero when I go to like a Dare graduation or somewhere where a lot of little kids are because they're thrilled to come and take pictures with me. I get so excited. So they're the ones who remind me of all the good stuff, the good
Mhm.
people.
So you think now that more people are understanding the difference between federal, state, and local government, or do you still think that we have a great misunderstanding?
We can only affect change slowly where we are. There's a vast number of people that are clueless. They don't know. And so they're mad because they're thinking that the president just controls everything that happens in their life right there. Doesn't. And it's an administration. This last administration has really shown me, even more so than I had ever seen before, of how every agency in every capacity could have the same message and can push the same, whether it's a social agenda, it's to really see that it's beyond even that president. It's beyond that person, but it's a group of people that are inspired or that are led under these administrations. And so I think it's important where we are even locally that we're inspiring um, communication and transparency and an openness to hear from our community at the local level to really empower them to let them know that they can make a difference of how things are created or decided for them
Mm.
if they just speak up. And so that's the thing, having their input into this local level that really controls a lot. Now our area I think is a little different when it comes to like even our US government, US congressmen,
Mm.
our senators are so far beyond us that I don't think they touch down. Maybe state senators, but not US.
Mm.
They don't really touch down in our communities. Our US congressmen are always running continuously, so you see them a lot. You see them a lot in the communities, but don't let somebody who's on a council be running against them, because then they get kind of shoved to the side as well. And so sometimes they don't get the respect that I think that they deserve as well when somebody locally is trying to run against them.
Wow.
So
What would you say to the young people right now, um, about local government and the value of being either engaged or the work to get elected? What would you say to that young person?
I'm just thinking about what I said to some young people last week
Yeah.
when I was speaking to a group. We just actually finished our third consortium group of paid interns from high schools. This is something that I instituted under my Mayor's Youth Network because I'm concerned about development, workforce development, bringing on a line of people from youth all the way through adult to be able to upskill people and help people get involved. I was speaking to a group of young people in another set of internships there in the city. And I told all of them, I said, you know what? At age 18, you can run. You can run for office. And I said, so you need to start looking to things now as you're learning about our city and all the different opportunities and knowing that your voice matters. And I told them about Jalen. I told them about, I said, the youngest mayor, he had just graduated from high school and he ran for mayor and he didn't even tell his parents. He didn't tell his mom
Wow.
until, and then he won. It's like, I guess what, parents? I won. So I I was trying to encourage them to get involved now. I had an older lady. Can't say a young lady. She's probably younger than me though. And she was asking me about how does she get involved to get prepared to run in the future. And I was like, okay, let's sit down. Let's sit down and talk because there's a lot of different ways that you can be involved.
Mm.
And people need to start. Some people want to come in and okay, well, I'm going to be involved. I'm running for mayor.
Uh-huh.
Really. So let's not get carried away. Not, but
He just comes straight. So
yeah,
I think that's a good point because a lot of people think that elected official is the only way to get involved.
right.
You know, what are some other ways for these young people or people who are already seasoned who like now I'm retired from my job. You know, there's some other things. Tell us about the other ways you encourage people to get engaged in the community.
Yeah, so it's a variety of ways. I've interviewed many, many people who have retired and want to get involved civically or even at a council type level. So many of them end up going into commissions. There's a lot of commissions that we have that cover different areas, whether it's transportation. Our planning commission is a larger scale one. You need a little bit more information besides just an interest for planning commission. But there's um, parks and
What
rec.
is a
There's
commission? People explain it because
okay.
you know we know, but you explain it what the commission is.
Yeah, so commission is like a group of people, probably 5 to 7 people, just depending on the commission size that focus on different areas. So we had transportation, we had people that were concerned about bike lanes, or do we have
So are they advisory or do they
so they get involved at whatever level that interests them, but they are advisory. So they get together, but a lot of the smaller decisions that they make, they funnel up to the council. So there's a staff person that's assigned to these commissions. And so they vet out a lot of different areas and a lot of input from the community. So they're more hands-on right with the community with those. So by the time different plans or policies are presented to the council, we have already a lot of input that's already come at a lower level. And so people can get involved that way or different organizations. I don't care if it's the PTA, people
yeah.
need to, they can get involved. I used to go in and volunteer in one of my son's class when he was in the 5th grade to help them with timetables, to help the kids with that. Or my other son, my older son, I would go and help with field trips because some kids just get a little unruly when they all out having fun on a field trip. And so I would go and just volunteer my time. And I was always working, but I took time off work to be able to help in those areas because I cared about youth, to be able to go into the classrooms to help prepare students for post high school. What are you going to do? How do you start right now so that when graduation day get here, you won't be terrified and don't have a plan? And
Mm.
so there's just a lot of things. We have a Hire Me First program that goes through our chamber. Different individuals who have professional backgrounds, they can volunteer doing that to go do mock trials or mock interviews to help students to be ready and to just give them real life advice. When I go in to do these little mock interviews, my time is always much longer because I really take time to listen to the students, not just an interview, but real preparation.
Wow. So what do you think? 10 years from now, I'm taking you into the future.
Yeah.
Looking back as the first black, the first female to have been the mayor here in Tracy, California. Looking back, what do you see the imprint or the legacy, your fingerprint on this community?
So when you said 10 years, I'm like, oh, I'll be drawing Social Security by then. No. um, Looking back, one of the things that is inspiring right now are the number of women and even men of color who have started to get out there and get involved. There are women that have spoken at some of my events that said that they would have never run for the offices that they serve in now if it wasn't for me. There are people who run transportation agencies that said they've been inspired by me to even go after the CEO or the executive director position because of what I've done. I'm like, really? And this year for our council run, I think we have probably 3 black men running. Men, there's been no black men on our council ever. We only at the fourth fourth black person on there now, and they've been all women.
How many
And
years you
so
have been around?
1878, but we have had
1870.
our first set of leaders of mayors since 1910. I just completed a whole research on that. So now I know all the mayors and all the council members throughout all the years since Tracy has been in existence. And I don't even think we're up to 10 women yet. And so on the
Wow.
council itself. And so yes, it's just inspiring to see little kids. I was walking door to door and this little girl had said, "Hi, how are you?" I'm like, "Hi." And I'm just walking to the next door and her mom rolled down the window as soon as she got in the car and she was like, "Thank you so much for what you do." She said, "Because my daughter just said, I didn't know that a girl can be a mayor." And so I was like, yes, you absolutely can be. So it's just the inspiration. Part of my legacy, though, is stepping out when I wasn't mayor to get that measure on the ballot to actually build amenities when we were in a structural deficit. We were in a structural deficit for our city for over 10 years. But the first year that became mayor, we had a balanced budget. But that didn't just happen overnight.
Mhm.
And it happened because of a plan, and a plan that I actually helped get in place to start a finance committee so that we can start looking at these things more and granularly and seeing how we can move things around and really begin to become more solvent.
Wow. Anything else you want to just leave the elected and engaged audience with?
I think the main thing is just, getting involved, being involved, connecting in different ways. Like I said earlier, you don't have to be the president, you don't have to be the council member, you don't have to be the mayor. You can be involved wherever that you just see there's a need. There's actually a day called Tracy Connects Day. And this is the fourth year that we're doing it now. Of course, it came from my heart. And so I worked this through our Tracy chamber, but it's everyone that's involved. And it's to connect the community with all the resources within the community, whether it's through our school district or through the STEM program or through our hospitals or through the civic organizations or through our churches, even through our cities. And so every September we have this day and we come together in the park. Everything's free. We get all the food donated. There's sometimes we have t-shirts, a lot of giveaways. Nobody can sell anything at this event. It's all giveaway to encourage people to come and to get and to communicate and to collaborate. So I'm trying to build these things so that people can see where they can get involved, where they can volunteer, where they can sign up to serve. So,
That's good. How can people stay connected with you to keep following your journey?
well, I am on Instagram. I had to do that because of my millennial kids, and so I can follow them. And then also on Facebook, and it's Nancy Young the number four Tracy. So I'll be having some other things out there, but that's um, my main taglines, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can always find me, Nancy Diane Young. So D is my middle initial, and so yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I don't do a whole lot of. It's X, whatever it stands for now. Big old black X on my phone. So you can find me, track me down.
Well, thank you for taking time out today. It's been a joy to really teach people how to get elected and engaged, really through your story, through your advocacy from, man, 11 years old until now. So thank you for your service and your leadership. Hey, I'm Mayor Derek Wood. You've been watching Elected and Engaged. We are your voice for local leadership. Make sure that you share this episode. Make sure that you comment so that she knows how she has inspired you, as well as you share and tag a friend in the bottom. And we'll see you next time on Elected and Engaged.